First item is roll call by the clerk.
Fenish, here. Biba. Drushmeyer.
Here.
Drury.
Here.
Besser.
Here.
Schimick.
Here.
Mitchick.
Here.
All right, if you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item is posting of the meeting given to the public pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1984. So moved. Second. A motion by Esser and a second by Drury. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Just a couple items on the agenda itself tonight. We're going to delay the principal's report and the 21-22 high school course offerings just a little bit later. And hopefully Mr. Terrell can join us. He's got another meeting right now, but we'll hopefully be done before we get too far along here. The next item then is approval of the minutes of January 13th regular meeting.
I read them already. I make a motion to approve. Schimick here.
I'll second that motion.
So a motion by Schimick and a second by Esser to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? The only thing, Barb, is on the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, it says that we approved the open and session minutes. I think it's supposed to be open and closed. You just add that into there. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item then is approval of current expenses and vouchers payable.
So on the second page, partway down, there is, you see two payments to CISA 3 for the same amount, $7,700. So they billed us late for the second quarter. So that's for the second and the third quarter. It's not a double payment. So there'll be one more payment this year to CISA. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They kind of late, so we didn't have that. And then farther down, $360. It's for the storage pods. Can't see where that is now, but I saw it earlier and I marked it.
That's the bottom of page 3.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about this when we get to the Building and Grounds Committee, but that's what we're paying for per month for the 2 storage pods. We had to move a bunch of things out of classrooms to try to get some more room. And as we talked about, we'd like that to go away when we are done with the school year, hopefully things are more back to normal, but we need to find a spot to put some things, and we need to get rid of a bunch of things that are in here. Now this payment, and then the next page 4 the hotspots of 877, that stuff will likely be covered with CARES money or ESSER funds. And there's a little bit more of that money coming, but again, the hotspots, if we are full face-to-face in September, which we hope, we won't have that expense in there again. That's the only other things I wanted to, that's all I had really to point out in here. The next, there's another, well, we'll do this voucher first, and it's the next vouchers for the bond payments.
All right, I make a motion to approve both the current expenses and vouchers and then debt service voucher.
Why don't you wait on the debt service vouchers and we'll do this one first. If that's all right with you, that's fine with me. All right. Bryce is gonna go over that one next.
I'll second the review vouchers.
All right. So we got a motion and a second to approve the current expenses and vouchers payable. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do you want to go over the debt service vouchers then quick, Bryce?
Well, it's just on the debts we have, and 3 separate checks, as you can see, for a total of $388,925. So that's usually the principal and interest are broken out. And there's usually a smaller payment. This is a larger payment in March. And then generally in September, there's a smaller payment. I did not look. I know it's 3 or 4 years out when this is paid off.
I think the smallest one on there, Bryce, is within the next year or so that should be off the books.
Bond trust services?
Yep.
That's
Okay.
correct, Mike. Actually, this March payment for that one, this is the last one.
The last payment.
That was, I was gonna ask that. That always makes it easier when it's the last one, right?
Correct.
That's a good thing. And then those other two, one is for the elementary debt and one is for our last referendum debt. Good.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Esther and a second by Drury to approve the debt service vouchers. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is public appearances before the board, not for action. And if there's anybody that's joining us on the Zoom meeting, this would be the time for public comment if you have anything for us.
So, Bryce, like we talked earlier, just want to mention the snow day and how it affects our calendar, and with us being virtual, you know, throughout the year and part of last year, are we considering snow days, if we know in advance, to be a virtual school day versus a no school day? Because obviously I've been asked the question, and there's a couple of the schools in the area that have moved to that. As you can see on the ticker on the bottom, that no school will be a virtual school day. So just asking the questions as to what are our thoughts and how we want to move forward with that.
Well, Josh and I have talked about that a little bit and also wanted to know what the board's position would be. So we could position ourselves, we just have to make sure we send devices home, make sure that we're planning on that if we know in advance. And most of the events, we know it's going to be a day in question. So we usually, they talk about that 4 or 5 days in advance. And so we are aware of that. Once in a while, we might get fooled, but we could do that. We've had 3 total closures this year, and I think we're still okay with the minutes, but there would be no reason to have to make up days if we could use virtual, I think is what the idea is. So we can come up with a plan, or we can just decide that going forward that we, the other snow days would be, if we can get the devices home, we can declare a virtual day. And then, if that's what I mean, it's not an action item, but what does the board think about that?
My personal opinion is if we've already been teaching virtual long enough now, I don't see any reason why we can't teach on a snow day virtually. So is my thought behind it.
Are the teachers all?
If we have snow days built in, I'm fine with having using those snow days and not teaching virtually. But if once you get to the point where that means adding to the end of the year, then I would agree to use the virtual option.
Brent, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, our teachers are all able to do it from home as well, or do we expect them to come in to school to be able to teach virtually? Is that an issue at all? On internet and where they're at?
Well, some of them may be on internet, but I would expect that most of them should be able to get here too, as everybody else has to go to work that same day, so.
Depends how bad it is.
Right.
So snow days, we would want the teachers to come in and teach from here. And
I think you have to use some judgment with how bad it is too. If we get a huge blizzard that nobody was expecting and nobody can get anywhere, that's one thing. When we had a couple days off because of cold and, kind of the lingering things, I agree, Andy, that a snow day here or there isn't a bad thing. But I know last week, even with the kids a couple days home and then over the weekend, it wouldn't hurt them to have an extra day in school. And we had a virtual Friday the Friday before, and we have a virtual Friday this Friday. And last Friday we were all home, or the kids were home and didn't have school. So
that's the thing that's different this year with minutes. Is every other Friday is a virtual Friday, so we're losing a day per month. So we're losing about 9 or 10 days of minutes. Maybe not quite that many. We don't have them. Some of them aren't twice a month, but that's what's getting our minutes closer. So we think we're still good. We don't have to make up any. We're within a day or two of having to make up. And Barbara's saying if we can count the virtual Friday afternoons, that's one way. If we don't, that takes off some days again.
Another thing.
Go ahead, Andy.
Another thing to consider, I know Kenny, you said like everybody else has to go into work and that's true, but like I have the option of taking a personal day, and if we are requiring
We can't hear you, Andy.
Really? I'm not on mute.
It just
No, you just cut out for a little bit. We heard you're talking about the option of taking a personal day that others might not have.
I'm going to turn off my video just when I'm talking because that seems to work better for me usually.
Yep.
So that's what I was just thinking. How many teachers will take a personal day because they're not comfortable driving into work? A lot of my coworkers do that when it's a snowy day.
And I think if they had the option or were able to teach from home, I think that would be fine as well, Bryce. I think
Okay.
the question was just whether they could or not.
With the option, but they need to teach.
I think if we would only have one snow day every couple of weeks, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal, but when you have one week and two the next week, then it starts bringing up the question.
That, you know, the questions get asked because parents are seeing what other schools are doing. And if they see other schools going virtual on a school day or on a snow day, they're asking the question, why can't we do that? Because we're already doing that.
Right.
So that's the question that's being asked.
So would it make sense to do that on the next snow day?
If it's
Right
possible,
away?
I guess if it's possible that teachers can make it to school, and if they're not able to make it to school but still can teach from home, then I don't see why we could not try it.
The other thing, Bryce, does it make a difference if we're talking elementary or middle and high school? I think the middle or high school is a lot easier for the kids to be able to do virtual and, you know, depending on daycare situations and childcare and who's at home and stuff, it may be a lot to ask for elementary kids to do it on their own.
Right.
But, you know, when we did close down for some days, so they did something, and we count those as minutes. So whatever they did, when we had to close down before Christmas, we would just go with that. I don't think it's instruction all day. I think it's, you know, some things live and then some, work on some things and.
Are the minutes different between the elementary and high school as well?
The
Yes.
required number, yeah.
Yeah.
The last in the elementary.
Okay, we will, we'll come up with, we'll let the staff know and work on we'll plan the next snow day to be virtual and find out how that went.
Yeah, it's, right, and just, I guess, see how it goes, and if it's something that can be done, great, and if it's something that, you know, takes a little tweaking to do, fine too, and if we just find out it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but.
Right.
Anybody else have anything for us? Otherwise, we're gonna move on to the announcements and reports, and Bryce, you're up first for that, for the administrator.
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about vaccine for educators and include something. Sharon and Frederick went to a conference and they're talking about very possibly that we would be required to go to Land's End, that facility where they would have vaccination. It's not clear to me though. I think it must be after work. You know, she said she got hers Monday night. And on the second shot, sometimes there is a lot more effects with some nausea or some headache and some of that, temperatures and some things like that. So we're hoping it could be coordinated. So if we land on a Friday or something, they'd have the weekend to recover on that. But in a conference yesterday with Grant County, I know we're Iowa County, but again, both webinars, they're still saying to expect about March 1st is the time. It's not going to really get moved up. And what he talked about is whatever categories they're working on now, they've got to kind of get that finished out. And if Grant County got finished with all the people that are asking for it that is eligible, they would work in other counties, try to get them caught up, and then get to the next tier, or that B1 or whatever it is for educators. So that's going to take that much time, and there's pressure put on them to get to educators first, but I assume that a bunch of different groups are pressuring, and they'll get to us. And if it takes 2 shots, then get the 1 shot, then it's 2 or 3 weeks later. So you're really not fully vaccinated until probably the end of April. But at least at that time, we should have the people in the building that want to get vaccinated, staff that are worried about that, get that taken care of. But it's not going to really come any earlier than March, the way it sounds. And kind of been over that in a couple of different meetings with superintendents, and the governor was in on one of those meetings, in a Zoom meeting, and, you know, it's the same timeline, March 1st, and they're saying we need it earlier, but that's just the way it's gonna be with that. Also, we have some funding coming. They're not quite approved yet, but they're working on ESSER 2 funds, and that's, the DPI has put together how they're gonna roll out these funds, and our allocation is about 121,000, and it would be for COVID, things caused by COVID, expenses, or if you're gonna do some things to improve your air quality, do things to make it cleaner, safer school in regard to COVID. And a part of it too, a big part would be addressing the learning loss. And I saw today that it goes as far as the funds have to be expended by September 2023. So it'd be this year, the next 2 school years. So there's that amount of funding. And some schools, I mean, this is a nice chunk of money, but some schools have more money. And again, it's based on the poverty rate in your district, but this is not based on free and reduced lunch. I think it's just based on the poverty rate. So some counties or some school districts have a lot of low income in their county, and it's just per capita and the amount of income. I think it's some kind of a plan like that. It's the same plan that we get allocations for Title I. And I remember some schools are the same size, and some schools are in the rural areas, and some small schools get twice as much as other small schools, and it's just based on that formula. So we're not fair, we don't fare as well as other districts in that formula, but I think the thinking is giving more money to what they deem needier schools that don't have the income to work on paying for this, you know, other ways. So that's what's coming with that. Otherwise, most of my things are later on the agenda. I don't have a lot of other things in my report. I don't have any other things in my report.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Bryce before we move on? Doesn't look like it. The Building and Grounds Committee update, do you want to just handle that later with the recommendations?
Sure.
All right, then we would be on to the second reading of the Neola policy revisions.
Those are presented last, you know, we had the policy committee went through those, and then we approved the first reading in January. And this is just a second reading to get them finalized.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading.
I'll second.
A motion by Esser and a second by Benish to approve the second reading of the Neola policy revisions. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. On to new business then, we're gonna skip the course offerings for right now. Approving the Wisconsin Nutritional Purchasing Co-op.
This is a purchasing co-op for the lunch program, and it's we're involved through CSUP with it, or it's a membership type thing. I talked to Sharon about this, and it's been in for a few years. It costs us $300, and we've been making more savings than the $300, so we come out ahead. And certain things are better than other things in it, but it's just to be part of the cooperative. it's set up for board approval for the $300 and to be part of the group. So kind of something we've done about, she thought that 3 or 4 years we've been doing it. And that's worth doing again. So basically, you're getting discounts by purchasing through a group on a certain item.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Esther and a second by Drury to approve the Wisconsin School Nutrition Purchasing Cooperative. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Then we're on to the Building and Grounds Committee recommendations.
Okay, we met last Wednesday, and it was the board committee, Josh and Mike Aid and myself. And I let them know we have about $50,000 to work with in money that's budgeted for this budget year. And there could be some money, depending on how the year ends, if there's money that we haven't spent or becomes available and we choose to, you have options either to do projects with that money or to put in Fund 46, add to the fund balance, or sometimes you may prepay supplies or certain things for next year's budget, just depending on what our needs are. So we went through, we started with going to a long-term plan that was in place last year, and we went through that a little bit and came up with these first group of things that the committee is asking the board to get permission. We want to go ahead and get either prices or bids on some of these. And these may take up all of the 50,000. We try to get as many of these as we could. So the scoreboards in the elementary gym do not work. If we got new scoreboards of the same kind that we have that goes with our controller boards, you don't need the control boards, but those scoreboards are about $4,600 a piece for the elementary gym. So that would be a larger item right there. However, we can't use them now. So we have another thing that's borrowed if you've been in there. It's a big galvanized looking thing. So that's one area. We have a leaky water softener, and it's leaking in not where you put the salt in, but it's leaking in the resin tank. I guess that's what it's called. And that also is a larger ticket item. We would come back with quotes on these before we ordered these. So then if we get permission to do these items, we come back. I don't know if we'd have it by the next meeting, but the ones that we did, we put them on a spreadsheet like you've done in the past, and you actually have the actual cost on these. So we think we need to replace that, reshingle or metal roof on the press box. And as we talked about that, I reminded them that we had metal roofs where it was before, and the baseballs dented them on the dugouts, and they might get the press box. So especially if we stripped it with 1x4s, the chance to dent, and I don't know if they would show up on the press box. I guess it depends where you stand. But Melvin was in to bid on, that. So Josh and Mike had Melvin Kroll come in, and another guy, I forget his name, but to talk about that. So we have to decide, I guess, they can bid it both ways, but decide what we want to do with that. There's some shingles are blowing off that, and it's starting to look kind of ratty on the press box. So the north parking lot, just outside the outfield of the baseball field, we'd like to get that seal coated and then stripe the parking spots again. And then there's a long crack in front of the school. We want in that pavement, we want to at least seal that so the water doesn't go in and freeze and break that up. We want to make sure we get those 2 things done. And there's some sidewalks that may have heaved. We want to look at that in the spring, and we don't want to repair too many because of the cost, but for safety, if it's a trip hazard, we replace some of those raised sidewalks if it's necessary. There's the boys' locker room door mechanism. The reason that's on there, it wouldn't normally be on there, but it's about a $1,400 item unless we can get the company that changed them out, if they could stand behind it still. That's a smaller amount. Roof and flashing repair. Some of the insulation has come up in the corner of the elementary roof. And obviously you have to get that hooked down and sealed up. Had to have Mike explain this to me because when I drove around today, I said there's already the top rail on the baseball and softball outfield fences, and he explained that there's new fences we put in and shorter fences that spectators could lean on or the players could lean over the fences, and it's a plastic cap that goes around there. It almost looks like drain tile, but that would be colored, so we'd like to get that done. You can get a price for that. We have a refrigerator that does not work, and might be a way to repair it or replace the compressor or something. It might be good enough to keep because it's there, and like a new one is like $4,000 or $4,500. There might be a way to repair that for $1,200, and the rest of it is still good. And another one that we added at the meeting is in the corner of the commons, where the TV is. We want to put a concession stand there and make it kind of a special place, and you could keep all the stuff locked in there. It doesn't have to go in the kitchen. We'd have some refrigerators and things, and there would have a roll-up door. You could dress that up a little bit. And then when we were talking about that today with Mike Aid, he asked if maybe we could make it to accommodate also a ticket booth, so we could kind of rope off temporarily as they come in, and they could go between, just come in and take a right and go between the trophy case through there, and then the ticket taker could be right there, and they'd be kind of out of the way, and all the traffic would go through there to get in. So we want to consider that at least. So they're gonna at least give me some bids on that. So those are the ones that we want to know if we can. I guess we want permission to go and pursue these and come back and see what the totals are. And then if it ends up way over 50,000, we're going to have to prioritize what we need to work on now, and then see if money becomes available to do some of these later in the spring or summer. So that's the first part of it. And then the other things on this list that you should have are longer term or bigger ticket items. And one of the first things that was talked about was doing some equipment upgrades and upgrade the shop facility, tech ed facility, to accommodate some more modern and cutting edge technology, so our students can be up to speed on some of those things. That's a different way, and there's different ways of doing that. We even talked about if we incorporate relocating the fitness center. One idea was to put it in that facility and building a separate facility for tech ed, either onto the school or a standalone building. You know, we have to price out all those options, but the weight room and cardiovascular room, so the fitness center could be all one big area. It could be set up so the community could access it and not have access to the whole school, is one idea. So those are things that we could be doing, but it's, you know, the kind of major things. When these larger bond payments are paid off, the plan is to do some of this major maintenance and these upgrades. And so the money wouldn't really drop off and continue paying somewhere in the same neighborhood. So there's roof repairs, and we talked about, you guys can jump in on this, there's different ideas on, I mean, whether we use ballast again, whether we do a whole new roof membrane. We have dishwasher and hot water booster that we talked about. We'll just keep it going as long as we can maintain it, but at some point, it's old enough that that will go and it won't make sense to fix it anymore. And we also talked about that as we get past the 5-year mark with Fund 46, that, you know, we can operate easier that way, because if something does go bad and it takes $20,000 to put a new dishwasher, hot water system in the kitchen, we'd have money already set aside in there. We'd have the funds for it. So if that happened, we could take the money out of there. So that allows us maybe to let some things run until they get to the end of their useful life. I don't know that this was a budget item, because there was a fund to add to the 4 and 5K playground. There was some fundraisers and things that we want to make sure we're continuing with that. Another thing was, you know, we continue to do floors as we have money, replace them with epoxy finish. It was brought up that I wonder if any of the COVID money or the ESSER funds, if it would be thought to replace some of the carpet to cut down on the germs and the exposure, especially places like the band room where they have to clean their instruments and spit on the floor. But usually the band teacher talks about the noise, so maybe if you do a combination of adding some soundproofing or something, if we did that, that's something that I can find out if that's covered. The last thing that really came up was in front of the school, extending the sidewalk between the ball field to the north, so the sidewalk wouldn't end, it would go right to the ADA pathway from the school. It kind of goes out so far, and it just kind of drops off, and that's just some dirt and some gravel. So that is probably a big ticket item. And incorporated with that, if there were too many issues with the sidewalk, maybe do big chunks of that at the time, or if we added that sidewalk, we would just tie into that and do a larger amount. But I don't know if that was from my notes and talking to Mike. I don't know if I missed anything on the long term.
No, I believe that's most of everything we talked about.
The only thing on there, Bryce, for long-term items is our HVAC system. We're kind of limping that along and replacing items as needed. But I think if we're looking out 5 years into a referendum, that HVAC equipment replacement, maybe dehumidification of the gym and things like that, maybe looked at. The parking lots are always going to be an issue that need maintenance. And then that whole front sidewalk and curb out front would be part of those long-term needs.
Okay, so put that down. Yeah, I did. HVAC is something that's, yeah, it's hard to piecemeal that in. So when we do that, it'll be big ticket item. So we want to, I guess we're asking for the go ahead and get prices or quotes on these. And we want to bring some back. Hopefully next board meeting, we can have some prices and things so we can approve some of these. Or would we want to have a building and grounds in the meantime, or just bring the prices on a spreadsheet like we've done in the past? And just,
I think, Frank, I guess my suggestion would be to go out and get the pricing and have another building grounds meeting to kind of prioritize what we feel is the items that we think we can justify with the budget that we have, and then take it from there.
make sense to everybody?
It makes sense as long as you get enough of them back that we've got a list to deal with. If you just get 1 or 2 that we know are needs and not wants that you can just bring to us, that'd be fine too.
Okay.
But I think some of the things like the concession stand and the press box and those things are nice things that we can fit them in, but some of those other ones we need to make sure we can get done.
Okay. We want to, I mean, it's a place to have meetings, but it's usually a week before the board meeting.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't know that you really need our permission, Bryce, to go ahead and get bids and start working on this list. I mean, we can give you one if somebody wants to make a motion quick, but.
All right. we'll go forward.
Yeah, I don't think we really need action on it since we're not approving payments. You just kind of presented what the plan is and we'll approve it when you bring some of those back to us.
Okay.
So thanks for covering that. The next item then, unless anybody has any questions on that, doesn't look like it. Amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with Iowa Grant for EC services.
Well, we had some students move in, and there's 2 more students going for the rest of the year over there because of move-ins. So the cost is increasing from 16,000 to 24,000. So it's about 8,000 more than, we was an original agreement. So they just amended the agreement. And sometimes when this happens for the following year, you can apply for what's called transfer of service. In other words, if they came from another district, we can get a revenue limit up based on some of that. This would be an extra cost that we incurred. So sometimes we pay for it this year, but we can get, for years going forward, we can get money to offset some of that. But this is just what we need to do to provide for these students.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Esser and a second by Drury to approve the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Iowa Grant for early childhood services. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. We've got a couple personnel items on here then, Bryce. There's first one's a volunteer baseball coach.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Who is that?
It's Trevor Sigenthaler. He was a student teacher with Mr. Ryder and Mrs. Smith first semester.
So he's our FIAD teacher.
All right, and that does not require any action. It's just kind of for our information. Then elementary intern teacher contract.
And as we haven't had one of these for a few years, and this should have came a little bit earlier, but we assumed that the DPI or sometimes it came from the university when you had an intern, but the cost is $4,500 to have the intern. But she's able to do different things above a student teacher. She can actually teach with by herself with no kids in the room after she's been here a little bit. So allows us to have some different sections and things to our benefit. It's at a lot lower cost than if you had a teacher here. And we are planning to post that position for next year, so we have 2 sections of first grade. We will be adding that in. The only thing that it has in here for benefit is there's some sick days in here, I think 5 sick days, which would be equivalent to having 10 in a full year. Otherwise, no retirement, no health benefits or anything else.
And this is primary, is this for, first grade or kindergarten again?
It would be elementary, so they
Elementary.
move around depending on what experience she needs. But she's, like I said, she's versatile and she can cover by herself in a class if needed.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion by Drury and a second by Benish to approve the elementary intern teacher contract. Is there any discussion?
Another thing, I think that because she can teach by herself, we were able to then take an aide and reposition an aide to another area and cover another need. So that was with the large first large kindergarten class, that was, you know, part of the plan to look for an intern. So we did that and shuffled the deck a little bit over here, so it did free up another area.
All right, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on here, Bryce, is a teacher resignation.
It's Sarah Lichty has resigned from her position as elementary music and 7 to 12 choral teacher.
Is that effective immediately then?
No, it'll be at the end of the school year.
Next week. I'll make a motion to approve.
Schmick here, I second it.
All right, we have a motion by Esser and a second by Schmick to accept the resignation. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Bryce, what's your pleasure on here? The principal's report is nothing that we can't live without. The course offerings, do we need to get those approved this month
No.
or?
Well, this meeting, I think, because I need to start the scheduling process.
Okay.
I haven't spent time with that at all.
And then the closed session items, are those things that we need Mr. Terrell for as well?
We could, but I could do that without him.
Okay,
And we could do that and come back out and see where he's at, and if he's not done yet, we could decide then to finish the meeting. But
okay.
I can cover closed session.
And I think with just the course offerings, I'm not too worried about leaving people and coming back to open session later. I know sometimes we don't get the recording going if there's no action to be taken. We can try making sure to get the recording brought back up again to get that last action item in.
So maybe we should take action on course offerings.
It probably wouldn't hurt, then we wouldn't have to worry about it. I don't know. We can just check with Mr. Terrell too and see how much longer he's gonna be. And we've got that list on here. I know sometimes he gives us, in there's the edits shown.
He's got edits in here.
I think the only edits in there, you guys, are just some changing in some wording in some high school science classes, and that's it.
Yeah, it looks like to me it's more description of how the class would be, and then versus, you know, it's not adding or changing any course descriptor, courses, I guess. From what I can see.
I assume if there were major edits in different courses, those would show up in here as edits as well.
Right. All I'm seeing, anything that's changed is underneath the chemistry and chemistry 2.
Okay. Classes are listed in bold print. I don't see any bold print.
I looked through that earlier and couldn't see anything in bold print, so I didn't know if there just was no new things or.
I mean, at the very end, it talks about transcripting credits through Southwest Tech. And that happens sometimes through the school year, but remember a bunch of them did that in the summer. So Maybe it wasn't added, it might not have been added in the course description book yet. You know, because I think Nancy
Oh, I see.
kind of,
Okay. I was gonna say, because those classes have been happening.
it wasn't in the book last year, it's probably added, so it's in there this year. We're talking about bold print, Josh, in the course description book at the bottom. It talks about or transcript and credits, just do south about tech. That's just to get that in the, some of these things in the book that weren't in before.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm late.
We made it through almost everything without you, so we're down to
Beautiful.
we're down to the course handbook and just making sure that we know what changes there were in it before we approve it.
Yeah, if there's any changes, it should be bolded. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but, you know, I don't think there's a whole lot new, is there? That I remember looking at it. It's been a while since to be honest with you, I checked it last, but.
I guess the most I can see is basically only chemistry 1 and chemistry 2, or its description.
Yeah. So nothing real big on the change.
I'll make a motion to approve the course descriptions.
I'll second the motion, Schmidt.
All right, we have a motion by Benish and a second by Schmidt to approve the 2021-2022 high school course offerings. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. I think I got everything else on here checked off, Josh, except for a principal's report, if you have anything to share with us.
Yeah, obviously, school year is still trucking along here. We're still able to hold the old fort down as best we can. Excuse me, wrestlers just finished up sectionals this last weekend, and we were did very well. The team took second place. Had a shot at first place for a while there. Ended up getting 3 champions and 1 second place. So Mason Welsh, Elliot Biba, and Cal Dorota took sectional champs, and then Colton Cutts was second. So we have 4 wrestlers going on to state this weekend. So awesome. We're gonna have a pep rally for them tomorrow as best we can, I guess. I'm gonna bring the 4 wrestlers in here in the library here. We're gonna have a video, and we're gonna do it through a Zoom, so all the kids in every class will watch it in their classrooms. And then we'll do a little parade at the end, have the kids walk through here, social distance, go get them through the door there and send them on their way. So they're gonna head up probably either Friday night or Saturday morning, depending on when they have to weigh in. Probably looks at Friday night right now. They got to weigh in pretty early right now, they're saying. So anyway, been a great year. 2 seniors, Donald Laufenberg and Andrew Winders, both have great careers in wrestling, so I want to recognize those 2. I know they both had aspirations of going to state and you know, one move here and there. I think they both would have got there. So obviously they had their dollars down a little bit, but overall, we're proud of those guys. The boys and girls both had their seed meetings. Boys got a 2 seed, the girls got a 2 seed. So the first game of the girls tournament was last night. We had a bye, so we'll play Waniwak Friday night, and the boys will play the winner of Ithaca and I want to say Weston, I believe. So they have a bye as well. So good things. Boys were able to beat Potosi last night. They were missing a couple players, so that was nice for them to get back in the W side. I'm still missing 5 right now that are in quarantine, and unfortunately I get them back the day we play our game, but I'm confident they'll be ready to race. So we're making do and moving forward. Just some things around school. We have quite a few students right now that are virtual, that have been quarantined, and then we have quite a few that are just choosing the virtual because of the postseason that's coming up right now for all 3 sports. So we're making that work as best we can. But it's getting trying for everybody. You know, the weather's cold. This COVID stuff is getting old for everyone, but we're hanging in there and trying to stay as positive as we can and pushing forward. So there anything else that you wanted me to address, Mr. Bird, or?
Well, one thing we talked about that we decided we want to have the next snow day be virtual, snow day that doesn't sneak up on us. So if we know there's something coming, we can kind of prepare people and, we'll do one, we'll see how that goes. If we have to tweak it, we can tweak it. So, the question came up, what is the elementary? How is it for the elementary? And what I said, maybe you can weigh in on more of this, it's like whatever we did, in the fall, when we were closed down between Thanksgiving, for a couple of days after Thanksgiving, elementary, everybody was closed down a ton of those minutes. Main thing is, since we're doing it, and we don't want to have to make up any days or extend the school year, and we've had three snow days. So.
Two in a row, do we have one previous time?
We had one previous and then two last week.
Yeah, we can do that. The biggest challenge for that is middle high school, it really isn't, as long as the kids know it's just, if it's a one-day thing that we think, as long as they get the Chromebook, we can make it work. Elementary is a little more difficult, but I think what we can do is I'll meet with the elementary staff and just have them put together something for a day, where if we can say kids aren't gonna be here for a day, so the kids know, this is what we're gonna do. It may be different than what they're working at that moment, but they're still teaching them something, still getting something out. So kind of like a reserve, hey, snow day book, this is what we're gonna do for math, this is what we're gonna do for, but otherwise it's really hard for the elementary to get planned because there's so much stuff that the kids need to take home.
And I don't think our concern was so much with the elementary as the middle and high school. I understand there's a lot of issues with elementary kids getting online, virtual, and.
It is, so even if we did elementary snow day and middle high school virtual, we could do that really easy, but elementary is a tough one, but we can make it work.
Yeah, I think one here and there wasn't a big deal when we started stringing three together in 2 weeks, and we started getting questions as to why we're not when we're doing other virtual days. And like you said, about half the kids are out right now anyway.
Right. Yeah, for those it wouldn't be a problem. A lot less elementary than middle high school out. But
right.
As far as virtual, then. All right.
All right, I think that wraps up our agenda then, other than the last few items, we've got to go to closed session. So adjourning the closed session, if I could get a motion for that.
To close.
We have a motion by Drury and a second by Esser to adjourn to closed session. Is there any discussion? If not, Andy, could you do a roll call vote for that, please?
Benish, yes. Biba, Dreschmeyer.
Yes.
Drury.
Yes.
Esser.
Yes.
Mitchick.
Yes.
Chimick.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna go to closed session. I don't know if Mr. Tucker is still watching and able to kick everybody else out and stop the recording. Yeah.
Kick him out and stop recording, right?
Yeah.
Does he need to stick around to go back and record when we come back and open?